Hey guys, and welcome to the Working Money Channel. This was posted on Twitter just yesterday by Finance-A-Lot. It's fascinating watching the government use the same playbook from 40 years ago. Every single word, or rather every single excuse Milton Friedman said they use is word for what is being said today. Now, there's a YouTube link here, guys. There's also a clip here that's got over 183,000 views already. It's about a minute and 40 seconds long. I'm not going to play you guys the clip for copyright reasons, but I'm going to link it in the description to give you guys a sense, or, to maybe get you guys thinking a little bit about what the government has been doing and how it is impacting inflation despite the excuses that they are giving. So, some people just hear paraphrasing Ismail Tarim down here saying inflation is made by government and no one else. Of course, no government wants to accept responsibility for its own defects. Jack Dawson down here saying, they will tell you inflation is produced by greedy businessmen because of the funneling of taxpayer money by government into the pockets of said businessmen. Inflation today is the result of a cooperative sabotage against the economy by both government and big business. So this comes in line with the Great Reset and, that whole coordinated effort to essentially collapse the current financial system, and they're using inflation as a tool to help this plan play out. Diego Ramirez Diaz down here saying, so why is there inflation in other countries, including countries that didn't spike their money supply? It's almost like inflation is more complex than the toddler-level explanation of print money, inflation go up. Well, you can see in the countries that have been printing money, there is a direct correlation to inflation. I'm sure there is more to it than just print more money, inflation goes up. But maybe that's a topic for another video. Robot 4000 down here bringing up a good point, though. The US and the EU control almost half of the world's economy. Price is set at the next marginal buyer. Since half of the world economy massively increased money supply, the price of basic goods are set globally. It ripped through the world. So some food for thought. And guys, again, I will link this in the description of the video if you want to take a look. This is having an effect on markets, including now Bitcoin, which, as I think we can conclude, is correlated to general markets. But Alex Kruger here bringing up a good point. As a general rule, trading volume is the highest when markets capitulate, and such capitulation creates major bottoms. This weekly chart includes the aggregated Bitcoin volume for most BTC pairs, spot and perpetuals across exchanges. Volume hit its all-time high 2 weeks ago. So as we have seen major market capitulations, we have seen volume levels increase, and you guys can see that here, highest volume level we've seen ever. And this has happened during this capitulative moment where traders are really trying to estimate where the bottom is going to be. This is the Bitcoin weekly chart, so just to kind of give you guys some perspective there. Another capitulative moment was back in 2020. We saw that over here. We saw that after the initial decline in market back in after last spring into the summer of last year as well, before it rallied up to make a new all-time high. So we saw it here, and then the time before that was the December 2018 sell-off. Bitcoin, that's when I bought a lot of my Bitcoin right back in here. So you guys can see that trend being set. Bitcoin volume increasing to new all-time highs, and we just said another one 2 weeks ago at the capitulative bottom. So something to be paying attention to. Bitcoin right now trading at about $19,200. What do we got XRP at? XRP trading at about 31 cents. So similar patterns here on the chart. In the market, crypto market news, more negative stuff coming out. We talked the other day about Three Arrows Capital and how they were forced to liquidate. Well, now crypto hedge fund Three Arrows files for Chapter 15 bankruptcy, guys. It is now confirmed Three Arrows Capital is seeking protection from creditors in the U.S. under Chapter 15. Singapore-based 3AC is one of the biggest casualties of the latest so-called crypto winter to date. CNBC reported Wednesday that Three Arrows had fallen into liquidation, citing a person with knowledge of the matter. Representatives for Three Arrows Capital filed a petition in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of New York on Friday, according to court documents. On Thursday, Singapore's financial regulator had accused the embattled fund of exceeding its assets threshold and providing false information. So not great news, especially for 3AC, but more importantly, more broadly, the crypto market as a whole. This is getting me wondering, is this the major player that is going to go to zero, as Kevin O'Leary had mentioned in one of his recent interviews? So here's what we're facing, guys, and this is going to sounds like it's going to grow more and more into a liquidity crisis if we see the domino effect continue. Well, what do we have to combat against that? Well, a new financial system being built from the ground up, and DLT technology being central to that. This is why companies like Ripple-enabled Temenos is seen as the #1 best-selling banking software in 6 categories. So Temenos has been recognized as the market's leading open platform for composable banking, and the IBSI recognized Temenos as the leader in 6 categories, more than any other technology provider, including digital banking and channels, core banking, and payments. And so here are the 6 categories. #1, best-selling universal banking, core banking solution with 49 new name deals, maintaining its market leadership with 49% of total deals in the market. Temenos was the only major core vendor to increase its market share year on year. #1 for digital banking and channels, signing 79 deals, maintaining more than 50% market share in the Americas. #1 in payment systems for retail banking for the 4th consecutive year with 43 new name deals. #1 for risk management with 39 new name deals, 2x the number of deals of the next vendor, so double the amount. #1 for Islamic core banking with 50% year-on-year growth and 11 new deals named, and #1 vendor for digital banks, neobank and challenger banks with 34 new deals named, 4 times the next place vendor. So in 6 categories, Temenos, Ripple-enabled Temenos, is considered the #1 banking software. It is no doubt helped along, in my opinion, by DLT technology. Understanding, I think Temenos is in on the game. I don't know if they're an official partner of the World Economic Forum or not. Oh, look at that. I guess they are. I just did a quick search, and you guys can see here Temenos on the World Economic Forum's website. So there you have it, a Ripple-enabled company. Temenos also part of a grander plan to reset the financial system. Is it any surprise that they're #1 in all these categories? I'll let you be the judge. T-Hole Bedict XRP also bringing this up with regards to Ripple customer WireBarley. So they are partners with Visa, and they're expanding their global payment service with a Visa-branded multi-currency card. Cross-border payment solution provider WireBarley announced the launch of WireBarley Global Card with Visa, a world leader in digital payments. Through the partnership, WireBarley is to expand its overseas remittance-focused service to a cross-border payment service to target the global market. So another partnership here, guys. Ripple-enabled WireBarley partnering with Visa, who by and large is also Ripple-enabled through the Earthport connection. They did purchase Earthport back in 2019. I believe the final deal went through in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So even Visa realizes that, the future is DLT, and we've got to move towards the new technology that is going to be part of the new future of finance. So I'm not going to get into the details on this. I just wanted to bring this up and thank T-Hole Bedic for posting this. And so I don't know if you guys saw this clip from Jackski here on Twitter. Control of money is here. So along the lines of the Great Reset and being able to control our wealth. This is happening, guys, right now in Australia. I'm going to play you this clip from a gentleman who went to the Commonwealth Bank and was a little surprised at the reaction he got when he wanted to take out some cash.
How you doing, guys? Has anyone been to the bank lately and tried to withdraw any money? I came to Commonwealth Bank today to withdraw 15 grand. For some unknown reason, it got flagged as a possible scam account, right? Their explanation was they're going to try to stop me from getting scammed. So, in a nutshell, you have to call this department, and this department won't release your money until you pay them. You told them exactly what you're going to do with the money. Even though I caused a massive scene there, absolutely massive scene, because I don't want to tell people what I'm doing with my money, right? There is a very strong possibility, if you don't tell them, that they don't pay you your own money from your own bank account. Keep in mind, I gave him a Medicare card, I gave him a driver's license, I gave him a Medibank private card, I gave him all sorts of ID, like more ID than I need to get into a government building and become Prime Minister of this country, right? Yet, they still wanted to know in exact detail what I wanted to do with my money. And they wouldn't buying drugs and drinking alcohol and going to a strip club does not suffice. They want to know exactly what the money is for. So I said to them, I got to give money to someone. I said, do you have an invoice? And then I lost my mind. So guys, I don't know what the hell this world's come to. We're getting to the point now where it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, I haven't lost my temper in a long time, and today made me lose my temper. You know? What the hell has this world come to? They want to know in exact details what you're doing with your money. Shrugging it off and giving them a one-sentence answer doesn't work anymore. It's bullshit. It's absolutely ridiculous, right? You're not going to stop people scamming me, right? I'm the account holder. You can clearly see that. If I want to pay someone, you can't stop me. If you're trying to explain to me the scammers out there and I don't want to listen, that's my responsibility, that's my problem. You don't need to know the exact details of what the hell I'm using my money for. I could be using it for a strip club. I could be using it to buy drugs. It's none of your freaking business. Anyway, that's my rant for today. If anyone else experienced that, put it in the comments below. See you later.
That's what's going on in Australia. Anybody from Australia watching the show, please let me know if you've had a similar experience. Put it down in the comments or tag me over there on Twitter. I'm at WorkingMoneyCH on Twitter. For those of you guys who also may not be following me, follow me on Twitter. I post all updates on Twitter and my Facebook page. So welcome to fractional reserve banking, central banking, government overreach, and fascism. This coming from Matt here on Twitter. Been a long, quiet transition, but we are fully engaged in the battle for privacy and freedom, and 99% of punters have no idea. And the media? Crickets. Will they ask the hard questions? Nope. Again, guys, part of a new financial order in which they are trying to make it very, very difficult for us to use cash. They want us to get onto CBDCs, and that is going to be the next phase in this. Today, I wanted to withdraw money, and they said to do it at an ATM. Otherwise, they will charge me a fee. This coming from Castle Law here on Twitter. They really don't have the money. They're insolvent. 2 to 3 years ago, they sent me to another branch as they didn't have the money when I tried similar amounts for a car. Mission Bitcoin down here, giving the warning, people will eventually learn the hard way that the money in the bank is A, not really theirs, and B, not really in the bank, and C, not even really money. That's a good one, actually. I've been saying for a long time now on this channel, to protect yourself against the Great Reset, do not hold large sums of cash in the bank. I've kind of recently, I guess, been talking about this particular point, precious metals, cryptocurrency, obviously, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are already invested in, and now really good time to be investing considering the market is depressed. But also hard assets, anything that can help you hedge against the crap storm that is likely coming down the pipe. JC down here also mentioning exact same thing happened to my daughter at a Commonwealth bank trying to withdraw 10 grand. Lady thought that she might be getting scammed, etc. I said, that's our concern, isn't it? Then she proceeded by asking what it's for. I said, because she prefers to have her money and not give it to you. And then it took 30 minutes to process. I think a lot of this too has to do with the fact that the banks actually don't have the physical cash on hand. The printing press, let's not forget, that's a metaphorical concept. Government is just printing ones and zeros and providing injections of cash that doesn't really exist. So, okay, there's that. And just to kind of add to this whole Great Reset narrative, Klaus Schwab wrote a book called The Great Reset. And here's just one passage from the book. Airports face the same challenges as airlines. The less people fly, the less they transit via airports. This in turn affects the level of consumption in the various shops and restaurants that make up the ecosystem for all international airports throughout the world. So this is just kind of an extension of the Great Reset. Furthermore, the experience of airports in a post-beer flu world involving longer wait times, highly restricted or even no hand luggage, and other potential inconvenient social distancing measures could erode the consumer desire to travel for air and for leisure. Various trade associations warn the implementation of social distancing policies would not only limit airport capacity to 20 to 40%, but would also likely render the whole experience so disagreeable as to become a deterrent. So look what's happening in Toronto's Pearson Airport at the moment. Yes, those are bags. This is the baggage claim. I'm just going to play you guys. Don't have to have the audio on. I'm just going to play you guys the video here. All these bags coming off the conveyor belt, and these have been delayed because they are saying that they just don't have the manpower, the personnel to help offload baggage. So you think to yourself, well, why aren't they just hiring people back? And that question still has not been answered. So if you don't think a Great Reset agenda is underway, well, I'd guess again. So this just adding to this whole concept of the Great Reset doesn't have to do with finances necessarily, although, travel is a large part of the economy. But liquidity, that is going to be the biggest factor to help rebuild a new financial system. And so Anders L. brought this up. FLR launches, Jed runs out of XRP, David Schwartz reveals the secret sauce. So I don't know if you guys know this. David Schwartz just tweeted this out the other day. Hey, what's this thingy trying to fly under the radar here? He writes, "For the first time, this reveals the planned secret sauce, a continuous auction mechanism that incentivizes arbiters to burn liquidity tokens and arbitrager sooner, more accurately and more frequently to increase the benefits to liquidity providers." Now, he's talking about this XLS 30D, automated market maker on the XRPL. This just came out the other day. The XRPL Decentralized Exchange, or the DEX, currently provides liquidity exclusively by manual market making and order books. This proposal adds non-custodial automated market making, or AMM, as a native feature to the XRPL DEX in a way that provides increased returns to those who provide liquidity for the AMM and minimizes the risks of loss due to volatility. We propose a unique mechanism where the AMM instance continuously auctions off trading advantages to arbiters, charging them and giving these earnings to its liquidity providers. This allows liquidity providers to take a large share of the profits that would normally be taken by arbiters. So this is to improve liquidity, guys. A mechanism now improved on the XRPL. So I will leave this in the description. It gives you more detail on that if you're interested in the technology side of things. But to Anders L's point here, FLR is launching. That's happening in 2 days on Monday, July the 4th. Jed is, as we've been talking about, slowly running out of his XRP, but now it sounds like that amount is ramping up and his taco stand will be dry. And now Schwartz reveals the secret sauce. And another one from Anders L. Remember this simple rule always. Anyone who loaned money lost money because high promised rates of return always mean high risk. So just talking also about the crypto industry and how a lot of money has been borrowed, a lot of money that does not exist needs to be paid back, all bringing us back to this issue of liquidity. This is what's going to help the financial system rebuild. Building from the ground up, the phoenix will rise from the ashes. And so another point here that I thought was kind of interesting, at the beginning of every month, Ripple does unlock $1 billion of XRP tokens from its escrow wallet. Well, apparently, after that was released, less than 24 hours after Ripple unlocked 1 billion XRP tokens, the fintech company released yet another 500 million units of XRP. This brought to us by Michael at Val5Links. I never heard of them doing this before. This is the first time, as far as I know, less than 24 hours after Ripple unlocked 1 billion XRP tokens from its wallet, the fintech company released another 500 million tokens, this according to Whale Alert, which keeps track of all these transactions. The first transaction saw the blockchain company unlock 300 million XRP, worth about $93 million from its escrow wallet, and the released tokens were immediately transferred to Ripple's external wallet, while the other transaction featured the release of 200 million XRP, valued at $62.4 million, and they were sent to an unknown wallet that has no label. So 500 more XRP, guys, being released. In the past, what we have seen was Ripple releasing the 1 billion month by month and then returning a portion of that XRP back into escrow. Well, now we're starting to see more XRP being released from escrow. So that just gets me thinking, are we on the precipice of needing and utilizing this liquidity to facilitate bigger cross-border transfers and higher value payments? Are we coming to a point where liquidity is becoming an issue? Some people in Australia have been having trouble taking money out of their banks, which, by the way, I do suggest you go every so often and take some cash out. Keep it at home just in case of an emergency, because a run on the banks could happen if the situation gets even worse. A liquidity crisis, this is what we've been hearing for a while now. Enter Flare Networks. Jet is finally running out of XRP. David Schwartz just announces this new development on the XRPL, the automated market maker. And for the first time, as far as my knowledge goes, the escrow has actually released more than 1 billion XRP, 1.5 billion on July 1st, 2022. So how close are we to the implementation of RippleNet on a global scale? Tell me down in the comments what you guys think, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you like the content I'm providing. I always love hearing your comments. See you in the next one, guys.